The Seahawks NFC West odds may have taken a little bit of a hit on Sunday, but playoff odds still are looking pretty sweet heading into Week 12. We'll be breaking it all down here on our Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined, as always, for our Tuesday show by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to all the 12s who are listening in, whether you're in Fort Benning, Georgia, or tuning in nearby Sumner, Washington. We appreciate all the 12s who make Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week and have helped make Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. The Seahawks have turned the page. It's on to Week 12, the road matchup, this time against the 1-9 Tennessee Titans. The Seahawks will be heavily favored going into this game. We'll take a look at what's new with the Titans, but before that, we're going to dive in, as requested by many of our listeners. We're going to take a deeper dive into all 4 of Sam Darnold's interceptions on Sunday. And Rob and I are going to discuss what Seattle can do to help him bounce back in Nashville this weekend and moving into the final 7 games of the season. All brought your way courtesy of our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now for your lead story here on our Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Certainly there may be some 12s out there who think the sky is falling after the Seahawks lost 21-19 to the Rams on Sunday afternoon at SoFi Stadium. And in some regards, I guess if you're wondering about the #1 overall seed, it is still very much in front of the Seahawks. They still control their destiny. They've got 3 losses. If you can get to the end of the year with 4 or even 5 losses, those teams may still be in the hunt for that #1 seed. There's a lot of football left to be played. Obviously, still a big game nonetheless. The Rams taking sole possession of first place in the NFC West. For now, they've got the tiebreaker on the Seahawks as well. So certainly not a game you want to lose. You want to win all of them. But, Rob, I think when you look at where things stand in this conference, not just the NFC West, NFL.com still has the Seahawks at a 90% probability to make the postseason with 7 games left to play. They've got plenty of home games left on their schedule, and they've got a few games against lesser opponents, including this weekend against the Titans. And you don't ever sleep on anybody in this league or you get beat. But this is a game the Seahawks will be heavily favored in, and they get a chance to get back rolling again. And when you look at the standings, everything is still very much in front of the Seahawks.
Oh, no question about it. I think then you look at Seattle's record so far, 7-3, obviously. The 3 losses, it just feels like they were so close to winning all of those games. I think that from a statistical standpoint, he's looking at this latest loss to the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, Seattle, dominated in time of possession. They dominated in passing yards. They dominated in basically every statistical metric other than turnovers, and obviously most important, the final score. So I think you can make the same argument if you look at the statistics against the San Francisco 49ers and that opening loss, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Look, the Bucs had some injuries themselves, but I think that we are seeing just what a massive impact DeMarcus Lawrence has had on the Seahawks squad, as well as defensive backs like a Julian Love, a Devin Witherspoon. You get those guys back onto the field, I just feel confident that Seattle might be able to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is interesting because that is how or who the Seahawks would be playing if the playoffs were to begin right now. Seattle would have the 5 seed. They would be going on the road to Tampa Bay. Of course, going on the road isn't quite as frightening as maybe it had been in previous years with the Seahawks, because under Mike Macdonald, the Seahawks have had so much success on the road. Again, this is, if the season were to end right now, the Seahawks would very much be in the thick of the playoff chase, would be in the playoffs. And I think that with several winnable games in the future, as well as obviously another opportunity to face the Los Angeles Rams and kind of, reenact a little bit of revenge on them, then I think that the Seahawks' hopes of not only winning the NFC West division, but as you said, perhaps even competing for that number one seed. The Philadelphia Eagles are sitting there 8-2, only one game ahead of Seattle. Everything is still ahead of them.
Yeah, it very much is. And I think even when you look at this week, what's going to be going on in the NFC West, again, you can't take anybody lightly in this league. And Mike Macdonald ain't going to be taking the Titans lightly, especially when you got to travel to Nashville. But you look at who everyone else in the division's playing. The Rams have another tough game. They get to host Tampa Bay, so they get the home field advantage. But the Buccaneers are reeling a little bit. They've lost a couple games in a row. This is going to be a massive game for Tampa Bay because Carolina is right behind them now in the NFC South race. And, oh, by the way, the 49ers, they have to host Carolina, who has already won at Lambeau Field this year. Carolina has been kind of up and down, but they've been one of those weird teams, kind of like the Seahawks. They've been better when they haven't been playing at home. So that is far from a guaranteed win for the San Francisco 49ers with Carolina coming to town. And Arizona at this point, 3-7, they're not mathematically eliminated, but at this point, they're going to be playing spoilers. The games they're playing don't necessarily matter in the scheme of things. It's a three-horse race. But San Francisco, I think, has got a game there that could be potentially tough against Carolina, especially with how they've played on the road. The Buccaneers at 6-4, they're trying to fend off Carolina in that division. So this is going to be a massive game for them after losing a couple games in a row. They're trying to right the ship, and this is going to be a game where they have a lot of stock riding where they can show, hey, we still can compete with all the best teams in the NFC as well. So you could very easily be looking at a picture here where Seattle and LA, even though the Rams have the tiebreaker, that they could both be 8-3 next weekend. It is absolutely possible. So I think from that standpoint, Seattle, a 90% playoff odd percentage based on NFL.com's projections. As far as winning the division right now, our friends over at FanDuel, they've got the Seahawks at plus 300, the Rams at minus 240. So Seahawks fairly distant there in second place. The 49ers are plus 800. And if you're really feeling frisky, the Cardinals are plus 30,000. But I don't know that anybody's going to be wanting to jump into that pool. But the point is, everything is still very much in front of the Seahawks. And I think the games this week and the next several weeks, I mean, Minnesota, you don't want to sleep on the Vikings either, but they've had their struggles with new quarterback J.J. McCarthy. Seattle gets to host them at home. Sam Darnold's going to have a chip on his shoulder there playing against the team that let him walk. I look at the schedule and it feels like the Seahawks, and they've got that rematch with the Rams on Thursday Night Football at home coming up next month. You got to go out and you got to get the job done. You got to do the work on the field. But this was not a season-ending loss. And we talked about this last week. If they did lose, it's not like this just puts a nail in your playoff chances. Seattle's got to feel good about where they're at, especially with the fact that they played as poorly as they did with the turnovers, and they still had an opportunity to win that game on Sunday. I think the vibes are still pretty good in the Pacific Northwest, but you got to go out and you got to get the job done here these next several weeks to keep pace, because you do now have the tiebreaker going to the Rams, at least for the time being.
And Corbin, I'm going to date myself with this reference a little bit, but maybe we should have Nick Lee on this particular episode, just because of the Hollywood reference I'm about to give. But growing up, one of my absolute favorite movies was a movie called Young Guns, starring Emilio Estevez, Kiefer Sutherland, Lou Diamond Phillips, basically the story of Billy the Kid. And there is a scene where Billy the Kid and his, the rest of his gang basically are holed up, and they see the cavalry coming to get him. And Billy the Kid looks over, played by Emilio Estevez, looks at Kiefer Sutherland and basically says, "I like these odds." Now, I'm not a betting guy, but I like the odds that are basically saying that the Seahawks are a significant underdog. I think you said plus 300 to win the NFC West. I just feel that the Seahawks are the better team. They proved it against the Los Angeles Rams this last week. I am looking forward to that Thursday night matchup. I feel very confident that Seattle is going to ultimately win the NFC West division. I wasn't so confident before. I predicted that Seattle was going to finish 13-4, was going to lose both games against the Los Angeles Rams. I feel more confident now that Seattle is going to be able to exact that revenge on the Rams when they see them again. I think they're going to do the exact same thing with the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, the Tennessee Titans this week. Obviously, the Indianapolis Colts and the Minnesota Vikings that you mentioned before. There are some good teams on Seattle's schedule. I just see one of the most complete teams in all of the NFL. And I think the Seattle right now is feeling a little bit angry, a little bit pissed off, and pretty healthy. That was one of my biggest concerns. There was Gray Zabel was going to be out for a long time, but now it feels like this is actually a healthier team moving forward than most of their competition in the NFC.
And we'll see what happens in that Rams rematch. We got a little while till that's going to be coming up. Not that long, but it'll be a little while. Right now, the Seahawks have to take care of business against Tennessee and the teams they've got coming up on their schedule before that looming rematch at Lumen Field. When we come back, this was requested by many of our viewers and our listeners yesterday. We kind of touched a little bit on Sam Darnold's picks, but albeit without the all-22 on the screen, we're going to take a little deeper dive into all of Sam Darnold's interceptions from Sunday and what the Seahawks can do for our Tell the Truth Tuesday, what the Seahawks can do to help Sam Darnold bounce back moving towards this game against the Titans and the final 7 games in the regular season. That's coming up next year on our Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Welcome back to the Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. He's Rob Rang. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s out there. And thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. It's Tell the Truth Tuesday, and we're going to pivot from our normal Tuesday programming for this segment. Usually, Rob, you and I've got 2 or 3 things that we want to close our analysis for the previous game with, and then we shift focus to the next team. Now, we'll do that with the Titans later in the show, but we read the comments, we see what our viewers and our listeners want, and it was very clear yesterday, Rob, that when you and I just dabbling a little bit into Sam Darnold's interceptions, there were a lot of our viewers and listeners that were wanting more. They wanted more insight on what Sam Darnold may have been seeing, what the Rams were doing schematically. I wish we could show the all-22, but we did not have the ability to do that. However, Rob, you and I have both watched it, and we've got a little bit, different perspectives that we can bring to this, but I kind of want to take a deep dive into those 4 picks because there's always context always matters when it comes to these kind of plays. And I think you also have to look at it from a lens. For me, I look at it from a lens of Sam Darnold, what he's watching and how we can try to avoid some of these mistakes repeating themselves in future games. So let's dive into those interceptions and let's start with the first one that he threw. I believe it was the second or third play of Seattle's opening drive. And Cameron Kinchens, who I feel like has like 80 interceptions against the Seahawks the last 2 years, the guy has just been picking everything off. This was one of those classic robber plays where there's man coverage underneath, but the Rams did a good job of disguising it because it looked like it was a 2-deep shell right before the snap. And then the safety on the far side ended up dropping back into cover 1, and that allowed Kinchens to play that robber role in the middle, looking for crossing routes. And in this case, he didn't have any crossing routes, so he did what smart players do. He went and he sniffed out the out route for Cooper Kupp that was already covered pretty well, and then just undercut it. Sam Darnold never saw him, didn't recognize what the coverage was.
No, he didn't. And he didn't recognize Jackson Smith and Jigba had, a hell of a release to beat the cornerback Emmanuel Forbes off the ball. He was breaking free deep. As you mentioned, it was single high coverage at that point. And basically, if if Sam Darnold had felt a little bit more comfortable in the pocket, then I think that he might be able to take advantage of that throw. He did not, however. He was backpedaling on this throw. This was an under center play action to Kenneth Walker III. And again, he's kind of late backpedaling as he makes this throw towards Kupp, who was closely guarded by Kobe Durant. And as you mentioned, Cameron Kitchen basically steps ahead of it and steals the ball. I don't like Sam's read on this particular throw. As you mentioned, it was scoreless. It was 1st and 10, the Seattle 21-yard line. You just can't make a critical mistake that backed up into your own area. Obviously, it gives the Rams gives them a perfect opportunity to get the initial score of this football game.
Yeah, this was not a throw that needed to be made, and it was not a situation where it was necessary to try to force the football like that. There's just no reason to make that throw on 1st and 10, and you ought to know on film study, the Rams do this a lot. They do a lot of that cover one robber, particularly out of their dime set. So this was not something I was surprised to see at all. Now, go into the second half, the next interception. We talked more about this one yesterday, so we'll make this one a little quicker to dive into the other 2 interceptions. But going back and watching the play more in depth, the Rams were in cover 4 or quarters coverage against the Seahawks. And their corner, Kobe Durant, he backpedaled. He was way off the ball to start the play. He was playing off coverage, backpedaled, never really swung his hips to turn and go downfield. He was well prepared for this. It's almost like he read it like a book. And we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but basically he was the receiver running the route. Jackson Smith and Jigba ran a good route. It was not his fault. And Sam Darnold got the ball out when he needed to for that throw. The timing was perfect. The read, though, was not good. He clearly did not recognize the coverage. And listen, I'm not a coverage guru, but watching the film, that was as straightforward of an undisguised quarters as you're going to see. So if Sam Darnold's not seeing that, that's a little bit concerning. You have to be able to read that and see where the guys are lined up. That throw just simply was not there.
It wasn't there. And again, this is one that the pocket was collapsing on Sam Darnold. And so, as you said, Corbin, you're going to look at it from the quarterback's perspective. I'm going to look at it from offensive line's perspective as well. On this particular case, there was great pressure by Braden Fisk and Kobe Turner, who lined up in the B and C gaps on Anthony Bradford at right guard. Oluwatimi takes Turner, and Fisk beats Bradford to the outside, which kind of pinched in Abe Lucas. Byron Young was actually lined up outside as the wide 9 on Abe Lucas, but he twists inside to the free lane and delivers the biggest hit that Sam Darnold took to his chest all game long. So that's part of the reason why he was hurried and misread the play and delivered a ball that could have been caught. It was on time. It was accurate. It's just, as you said, the defensive back was in perfect position because, again, this is on a 3rd and 9 from Seattle's own 36-yard line. And so the corner recognized the fact that the receiver was basically going to settle at the sticks, and instead the defensive back was in position to undercut the ball, get the easy interception.
And you mentioned the tackle end exchange stunt that the Rams ran up front. I saw several people on social media saying, man, Zach Charbonnet should have picked it up. No, Charbonnet did what he was supposed to do. What they train their running backs to do in that instance, you're waiting to see if your tackle needs help taking these hard slanting defensive tackle that's going outside. And Abe Lucas ended up picking that up just fine. The issue was that Bradford did not have his head on a swivel and get turned back to pick up Young as he looped back inside, and he came in untouched. So they did not play the twist stunt well with the offensive line, and that certainly influenced Sam Darnold's throw there. Let's get to the third one, because this was the pick that I went back and I don't normally do this, but I went back just so I could listen to what Greg Olsen said in real time on the TV copy after this pick was thrown. And I can understand what he was saying about the route that Elijah Arroyo ran. I believe Sam Darnold was thinking that it was going to be a tighter crossing route and that he was going to go in front of Cameron Kinchens, and it was more of a banana-like route, and that allowed the safety to be able to undercut. I don't care, though. I still think it was a horrible read. I don't know what he was looking at there. This was a quarters, half play or cover 6, and he was throwing to the side of the field that was in the half or the cover 2 side of the field. And Cameron Kinchens was just sitting there. He baited him to make that throw. And as an instinctive player, he jumped it. But even if Arroyo ran that route the way that Greg Olsen was talking about, at best, it's probably just getting swatted away. And at worst, it might still get tipped up in the air and get picked. I didn't see an opening there. And that felt like another one that Sam was big play hunting there that he didn't necessarily need to in that situation. And it was 1st and 20. You had a couple guys that were open on shorter passing routes. Take some of the yards the defense is giving you and set up to play another down. That was a unnecessary throw again on that 3rd interception.
Yeah, and as you said, it was 1st and 20. So I think that he is trying to be a little aggressive and get a big chunk play here to kind of keep the sticks moving. The Rams at this point are ahead 14-12. There's 1 minute and 15 seconds left remaining in the 3rd quarter. Frankly, I pin the blame on multiple Seahawks on this one. On Klint Kubiak, the play call, I just didn't like the design of this play. Certainly on Darnold, and then Elijah Arroyo. I thought that he could have helped out his quarterback on this one. I just thought there was a pretty flat route. I think that there's a possibility that because Arroyo is a big man, that as he's moving down the field, that Kinchens just basically is behind him and Darnold loses sight of. Now, that said, Darnold probably should have recognized the fact that Jackson Smith-Njigba is on the right side, and he was running kind of like an out route essentially on the sideline. I mean, where else was the safety going to go? And so he was going to be playing that robber kind of role. What I really don't like about this is I thought that the better throw would have been to the other side where Rashid Shaheed and A.J. Barner both were on the left side. They were shorter routes, but at the same time, I thought on 1st and 20, get 7, 8, 10 yards rather than going for a 30-yard strike down the middle of the field when you have a safety that has been playing that robber role so effectively.
And I think you have to look at game situation too. Like if this throw would have happened on a desperation drive at the end of the 4th quarter where you've got to try to push the ball downfield, I would be defending Sam Darnold. I'd be saying, look, you got to take risks in those situations, and it just didn't work out. But again, this was not that situation. It was 1st and 20. You had tons of time left in the football game. You don't have to force the issue. So I think that is going to be the big thing. And the 4th interception, we don't have to break down scheme or anything. That was just, as he mentioned, sometimes you got to take sacks. And we talked about it yesterday. Absolutely should have went down on that play, and it would have been a 2 or 3 yard loss. Jason Myers is still very well in field goal range, and we might be having a different conversation if that ball was not thrown. We might be talking about Seattle finding a way to win this because they got that field goal then instead of towards the end of the game. And maybe they run the clock out at the end of the game and stuff. There's all kinds of different stuff that we can discuss here. But at the end of the day, the Seahawks and Sam Darnold, they got to look at ways they can rebound from this. And for the Tell the Truth Tuesday aspect, to me, there's one truth that already was kind of revealed at the end of this game. And listening to Mike Macdonald's comments in his press conference yesterday, they feel Ken Walker III has earned more opportunities to have the football in his hands. I don't think that necessarily means, well, we need to go out and feed him the ball 25 times as a runner. I don't think physically he's been able to handle that kind of a workload. And I think the other 2 runners they're giving the carries to are good enough. But if you want to get the ball in his hands more, get it to him as a pass catcher. That was the difference down the stretch. He had a 23-yard reception at the beginning of that touchdown drive. He had 3 catches for 44 yards. This is a guy that has been a really good receiver when he's had his chances in the NFL. He's not a great pass blocker. So if he's in the backfield in those situations, let him go out and get the ball in space. And especially if you're playing a team that's playing a bunch of dime with smaller defenders on the field, he's a hard guy to bring down in open space. Create those opportunities. They started doing that at the end of the game, and suddenly the ball started moving. Force the other team, dictate the terms to them in that regard. And I just feel like this offense, we've seen Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan back in the day, this Shanahan-style scheme, get the ball to the running backs in the passing game. They do it really well. That has been one thing I've been wanting to see more. I'm hoping the end of this game was kind of a precursor for that. That's going to be something that they lean on to try to soften things up on the back end so they can get back to taking those shot plays. It's kind of an extension of your run game.
Well, and I don't think it has to necessarily just be the running back that's the extension of the running game. When you're lining up Rashid Shaheed in the backfield as well, look, your two most explosive playmakers, with all due respect to Jackson Smith and Jigba, fantastic player, obviously. And with Torrey Horton is on the field, then again, he's got that playmaking speed as well. But get the ball in the hands of Kenneth Walker III and Rashid Shaheed. I mean, they have that 4.3 speed that it can just turn the game on its side. And so, again, whether it be Kenneth Walker III getting the ball in his hands as a receiver, he was actually open on that fourth interception. That was the one that was, I think, the most maddening, not only because of the timing, but because of this little, jump up throw kind of a pass that just looked like a scared quarterback at that moment. K9 was open, and that would have been just like a little dump off pass. This was on 3rd and 3. So, again, this was a very makeable type of a situation. And then Rashid Shaheed basically had got himself in position. He kind of settled in at about the 20-yard line. He was wide open with no defender within 10 yards of him. So, again, this is a pocket that was completely collapsing. Darnold did well just to get up into the pocket in the first place. But once he jumped up into the air, that's where he should have basically kept the ball, taken the sack, and then put yourself in position to hit a field goal at that point.
When we come back, we could talk about this Sunday Rams loss for the entire rest of this week. But guess what? There's another game coming up on Sunday. The Seahawks with a chance to rebound in Nashville against the Titans. We're going to take a look at what's new with the Titans. And even since the start of the season, there's a lot that's new for this Titan squad heading into this Week 12 matchup. We'll dive in up next here on our Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. The NBA season's well underway. There's no better place to get into the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, maybe you're going to be riding LeBron James now that he's returned to the Lakers lineup. FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I just got my brand new jeans from Doer, and I could tell you the words that I was hearing beforehand are 100% true. It is the most amazing pair of jeans I have ever worn. 5 times the stretch of traditional denim. They're antibacterial. You can wear them more, wash them less, and you stay cool and comfortable as the temperatures changed. Doer combines classic jeans wear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear, and it really is the best of both worlds. It's designed to look great and stay comfortable all day, no matter what you're doing. Simply put, Doer makes the world's most comfortable pants without having to sacrifice style. Get yourself a pair, or as an amazing holiday gift, go to shopdoer.com/LockedOnSeattle. You'll get 15% off your first order. That's shopdoer.com/LockedOnSeattle for 15% off. Welcome back to the Tuesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm Corbin Smith. He's Rob Rang. A special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in. And thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate your support of the show. The Seahawks going to be looking to rebound from their loss in SoFi Stadium on Sunday. Another road trip, this time to Nashville to visit the 1-9 Titans. And certainly when you look at the record and if you've watched them play this year, it has been a struggle to the point that Tennessee, not even at the midway point of the season, moved on from their head coach, Brian Callahan. They now have McCoy as the interim replacing him. Seahawks fans may remember McCoy as the offensive coordinator many years back for the Arizona Cardinals, so there's some familiarity there. But, Rob, this has been a team that they just had the number 1 overall pick. They used it on Cam Ward, and he has certainly had some flashes, but he's also had a lot of really bad luck. There's been issues with injuries on offense, and maybe the biggest one now, we're looking at what's new with Tennessee. His number 1 receiver, Calvin Ridley, out for the season with a fractured fibula. Ouch. A significant injury. Really the one consistent playmaker on the outside that Cam Ward had. is no longer going to be active the rest of the season. That's not to say they don't have some decent secondary receivers, but they don't really have another number 2 on the roster. They signed Tyler Lockett in free agency, former Seahawk, and now he's in Vegas with Geno Smith because he asked to be released. So this is a team that has just gone through all kinds of turnover, even since the start of the season, with injuries, players being cut, coaches being fired. It's a lot different looking team than the one that would have, necessarily been playing the Seahawks if it was in September.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, this is a team that has struggled. I mean, their 1-9 record, says it all right there. As you mentioned, they fired Brian Callahan after a 1-5 start. They are 0-4 under Mike McCoy. There's some familiarity there with Mike McCoy. As you noted, he was the offensive coordinator at the Arizona Cardinals. He was the head coach of the then San Diego Chargers for a couple of years. And previous to that, he actually was on the same Denver Broncos staff with Klint Kubiak for at least part of the 2017 season. The Titans' lone win this year was a 22-21 victory over the Arizona Cardinals. So this is a team that can come up and bite you. You mentioned that Calvin Ridley, the wide receiver, is out. I mean, he has been the Titans' best receiver, at least in name recognition. I mean, if you look at it, the Tennessee's leading receiver, not pass catcher, they're tight ends, have actually been pretty productive. And we know that Seattle has struggled against tight ends in the past, but it is a pair of rookies. Alec Ayumanor from Stanford, as well as Chimere Dike, a speedster. It does fit in with Cam Ward's style. He's kind of an improvisational guy that can make some people miss and try and throw it over the top. I don't know that that's a system that's going to scare the Seahawks, because we know how well that they have played in deep balls. When's the last time you saw a deep touchdown go up against the Seahawks? When's the last time you saw the running back really explode against the Seahawks? So if Seattle puts in the effort that you should expect, especially smarting after this loss, then I think that this is a game that they should be able to easily, overtake Tennessee from a pure talent standpoint. But there have been some changes to this squad. Cam Ward, of course, again, number 1 overall selection at the quarterback position. The Titans invested an awful lot of money in their offensive line. Left tackle Dan Moore, they brought in Kevin Zeitler. You mentioned the former Seahawks Tyler Lockett. Cody Barton is one of their best defensive players at this point. Again, there's going to be an awful lot of familiarity, even though this is a team, of course, from the AFC, and then one that the Seahawks don't often play against.
Yeah, and they also have Draymond Jones. So the revenge game is still in order, even if Tyler Lockett isn't going to be in uniform for the Titans. Draymond Jones has had his moments this year, but you look at that front line, that's probably the biggest strength that Tennessee's got, really, because of Jeffrey Simmons still being in there, and then Draymond Jones and a few of the other pieces they have there. But this is a team that made several trades at the deadline, moving some players. Roger McCrary was one of them. They dealt him to the Rams. So they've kind of been cleaning house there, and they are on pace right now to get a second straight number 1 overall pick to try to add some pieces around their new quarterback, Cam Ward. But as you mentioned, they got a lot of former Seahawks on the roster. I said Draymond Jones. They've got Cody Barton. They've got a few other youngsters. They're trying to get some action. Kevin Winston, the safety out of Penn State, back from his ACL tear, has now played in 6 games. They will be without L'Jarius Sneed. That has been the other big injury for them. Ever since they acquired him from the Chiefs, he just can't stay healthy. It has been injury after injury. So he won't be out there. Number 1 corner for this team is out. So again, you look at all these different reasons why you would think that Tennessee is a team that you're going to overlook. You can't overlook anyone in this league. And Cam Ward obviously had the talent to be drafted number 1 overall. And Tennessee's had some games that they have surprised people, and namely that Arizona Cardinals game where Arizona was winning, and next thing you know, a stunning comeback, and that's Tennessee's 1 win this year. So you're looking at a Titans team that has played tougher than the record indicates in some of their games. As of late, it's been a little bit harder for them to compete with some of the personnel changes, the injuries they've had, the coaching changes, you name it. But this is going to be a team that doesn't have, it's only been a couple of years since these two teams played each other last. Most of the guys that were on that Titans team are not on this roster. It's changed over a lot. You've got a different coaching staff that's in charge now. So Going to be a lot of new faces. The Seahawks, they're going to have to really hit the film to really study for this team just because of all those changes. And at the same time, you're deep enough in the season. You should have plenty that you can work with, especially the 4 games since Mike McCoy took over as the head coach. That should give the Seahawks plenty of ammunition to be able to work with heading into this matchup. When we come back tomorrow, we've got our typical matchup Wednesday. We'll be diving into all the key positional battles on offense and defense that you need to know heading into this game between the Seahawks and the Titans. As always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Rob at Rob Rang. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. We'll be back with Matchup Wednesday tomorrow. Make sure to tune in and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Go Hawks.